It's confiscated!
Police!
Oh, let's go! Follow me!
Hurry!
And according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country there will be a certain freezing, particularly at points on the north and northeast coasts.
Mrs. Barlow? Mrs. Barlow? It's cold. Ew. It really does look nice. Oh. How stupid of Giles. Oh.
Mollie! Mollie? Mollie? Where are you?
Doing up work, you brute.
There you are. Leave it all to me. Shall I stoke the Aga?
Done.
Hello, sweetheart. Your nose is cold.
Oh, well, I've just come in.
Why? Where have you been? Surely you've not been out in this weather?
I had to go down to the village for some stuff I'd forgotten. Did you get the chicken netting?
It wasn't the right kind. I went on to another dump, but that wasn't any good either. Practically a whole day wasted. My gosh, I'm half frozen. Car was skidding like anything. Would you bet we're not snowed up tomorrow?
Oh, I do hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
We'll have to keep the central heating well stoked up. Not too good. I wish they'd send the coke along. We've not got any too much.
Oh, I do so want everything to go well. First impressions are so important.
Is everything ready? No one's arrived yet, I suppose.
Oh, no, thank goodness. Yes, everything's sorted out. Mrs. Barlow's hooked it early. Afraid of the weather, I suppose.
Oh, what a nuisance these daily women are. Leaves everything on your shoulder.
And yours. This is a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
No, that's my department. And anyway, we have plenty of reserve tins if we are snowed up. Giles, do you think it's going to be all right?
What cold feet have you? Are you sorry now we didn't sell the place when your aunt left it to you instead of having this mad idea of running it as a guest house?
No, I'm not. I love it. And talking of a guest house, just look at that.
Pretty good. What?
It's a disaster. You forgot the S. Monkwell instead of Monkswell.
Good Lord. So I have. However did I come to do this? Doesn't matter now. Monkwell is just a good a name.
You're in disgrace. Go and stoke up the central heating.
Cross that icy yard. Ugh. Shall I bink it up for the night?
No, you don't do that until 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
How appalling.
Hurry up, someone could come at any minute.
And all the rooms are worked out?
Yes, there's Mrs. Boyle, front four-poster room, Major Metcalf, blue room, Miss Casewell, east room, and Mr. Wren, oak room.
Wonder what all these people will be like. Oughtn't we have gotten rent in advance?
I don't think so.
Or rather, mogs at this game.
Well, they bring luggage. If they don't pay, we hold on to their luggage. It's quite simple.
But I can't help but think we should have taken a correspondence course in hotel keeping. The luggage might just be bricks wrapped up in newspaper, and where would we be then?
Well, they all wrote from very good addresses.
That's what servants with forged references do. They may be criminals hiding from the police.
Well, I don't care what they are, so long as they pay us 7 guineas a week.
You're such a wonderful woman of business, Mollie.
And according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue.
Do come in.
Thanks so much. Weather is simply awful. My taxi gave up at your gate. Wouldn't attempt that drive. No sporting instincts. Are you Mrs. Ralston?
Yes.
How delightful. My name's Wren.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
You know, you're not at all as I pictured you. I was thinking of you more of a general's widow, Indian Army. That you'd be terrifically grim and memcybish, and that the whole place would be simply crammed with Benares brass. But instead it's heavenly. Quite heavenly. Lovely proportions.
Oh.
That's fake, but oh, this is quite genuine. Have you got any wax flowers or beds of paradise?
I'm afraid not.
Oh, what a pity. Well, what about a sideboard? A purple plummy mahogany sideboard with great carved fruits on it?
Oh, yes, in the dining room.
In here?
Yes.
Oh, well, I must see.
Oh, do come and warm yourself.
Absolutely perfect. Real bedrock respectability, but why do away with a center mahogany dining table? Little tables just spoil the effect.
Well, we thought the guests would prefer them. This is my husband.
How do you do? Terrible weather, isn't it? Takes one back to Dickens and Scrooge and that irritable Tiny Tim. So bogus. Of course, Mrs. Ralston, you're absolutely right about the little tables. I was just being carried away by my feelings for period.
Oh.
If you had a center mahogany dining table, you'd have to have the right family around it. A stern, handsome father with a beard, prolific, fated mother, 11 children of assorted ages, a grim governess, and somebody called Paul Harriet, who acts as general dog spotting and is very, very grateful for being given a good home.
I'll take your luggage upstairs for you. Oak room, did you say?
Yes.
I do hope it's got a full poster with little chintz roses.
It hasn't.
I don't think your husband's going to like me very much.
Oh, well.
How long have you been married? Are you very much in love?
We've been married just a year. Perhaps you'd like to come up and see a room.
Oh, ticked off. But I do so much like knowing all about people. You see, I find them so madly interesting, don't you?
Well, I suppose some are and some are not.
No, I don't agree. I think they're all interesting because you never really know what anyone is really like or what they're really thinking. For instance, you don't know what I'm thinking right now, do you?
Not in the least.
You see, the only people who really know what others are like are artists, and they don't know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on canvas.
Are you a painter?
Oh, no, I'm an architect. You see, my parents, they baptized me Christopher in hopes that I would be an architect. Christopher Wren. As good as halfway home, I suppose. But of course, everyone laughs about it and makes jokes about St. Paul's, but who knows? I may yet have the last laugh. Chris Wren's prefabness may yet go down in history. I'm going to like it here. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Indeed.
And really very beautiful.
Don't be absurd.
There, isn't that like an English woman? Compliments always embarrass them. European women take compliments as a matter of course, but English women have all the feminine spirit crushed after them by their husbands. There's something very boorish about English husbands.
Oh, come up into your room.
Shall I?
Could you stoke up the hot water boiler?
This is Monkswell Manor, I presume.
Yes,
I am Mrs. Boyle.
I'm Giles Ralston. Come into the fire, Miss Boyle, and get warm. Awful weather, isn't it? Is this your only luggage?
A Major Metcalf, is it? Is seeing to it.
I'll leave it at the door for him.
The taxi wouldn't risk coming up for the drive. It stopped at the gate. We had to share a taxi from the station, and there was great difficulty in that. Nothing wanted to meet us, it seems.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Miss Boyle. We didn't know what train you'd be coming by. Otherwise, of course, we would have seen that someone was, standing by.
All trains should have been met.
Oh, let me take your coat. My wife will be down in a minute. I'll just go ahead and give Metcalf a hand with the bags.
The drive might have at least been cleared of snow. Most offhand and casual, I must say.
I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ralston,
Yes?
you're very young.
Young?
To be running an establishment of this kind, you can't have had much experience.
Well, there has to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
I see. Quite inexperienced. An old house. I hope you haven't got dry rot.
Certainly not.
A lot of people don't know they've got dry rot until it's too late to do anything about it.
The house is in perfect condition.
It could do with a coat of paint. You know you've got worm in this oak.
Excuse me.
This way, Major. This is my wife, Mollie.
How do you do? Absolute blizzard outside. Thought at one point we shouldn't make it. Oh, I beg your pardon. I suspect we should have 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. Haven't seen anything like this since I was on leave in 1940.
I'll take the luggages upstairs. Blue room and rose room, did you say?
Oh no, I put Mr. Wren in the rose room. He liked the four-poster so much. So it's Major Metcalf in the blue room and Mrs. Boyle in the oak room.
Major,
Sir,
Do you have much servant difficulty here?
Well, there's quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
And what indoor staff?
No indoor staff, just us.
Indeed. I understood this was a guest house in full running order.
Well, we're only just starting.
I would have said that a proper staff as servants was essential before opening this kind of establishment. I consider your advertisement was most misleading. May I ask if I am the only guest with Major Metcalf, that is?
Oh, no, there are several here.
This weather, too. A blizzard. No less. All very unfortunate.
Well, we couldn't very well control the weather.
The north wind doth blow, and it will bring snow. And what will the robin then do? Poor thing. Oh, I do adore nursery rhymes, don't you? Always so tragic and macabre. That's why children like them.
May I introduce Mr. Wren and Mrs. Boyle?
How'd you do?
This is a very beautiful house, don't you think so?
I have come to the time in my life when the amenities of an establishment are far more important than its appearance. If I had not believed this place was a running concern, I should have never thought to come here. I understood it was equipped with every home comfort.
there is no obligation for you to remain here. If you are not satisfied, Miss Boyle,
No, indeed. I shan't think of doing so.
there's been any misapprehension. Perhaps it'd be better if you went elsewhere. I could ring for the taxi to return. Oh, the roads are not yet blocked. We've had so many applications for rooms that we'd be able to fill your place quite easily. Anyways, we're raising our terms next month.
I'm certainly not going to leave before I have tried what this place is like. You needn't think you can turn me out now. Perhaps you could take me up to my room, Mrs. Ralston.
Of course, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you were wonderful.
I think that is a perfectly horrible woman you've got there. I'd love to see you turn her out in the snow. Serve her right.
It's a pleasure I've got to forgo, I'm afraid. Lord, there's another of them. Come in.
I'm afraid my car is bogged about half a mile down the road. Ran into a drift.
Let me take this. Any more stuff in the car?
No, I travel light. Oh, I'm glad to see you've got a good fire.
Mr. Wren and Miss...
Casewell.
My wife will be down in a minute.
Oh, no hurry. I've got to get myself thawed out. Looks like you're going to be snowed up here. Weather forecast says heavy falls expected, motorists warned, etc. Hope you've got plenty of provisions in.
Oh, yes. My wife's an excellent manager. Anyways, we could always eat our hens.
Before we start eating each other, eh?
Any news in the paper apart from the weather?
Usual politic crisis and... Oh! A juicy murder.
Murder? I like murder.
They seem to think it's some homicidal maniac, strangled a woman somewhere near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? The police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity of Culver Street, medium build, wearing a darkish overcoat, lightish scarf, and a soft felt hat. Police messages have been broadcasted throughout the day.
Useful description. Fit pretty well anyone, wouldn't it?
When it says that the police are anxious to interview someone, is that a polite way of hinting that they're the murderer?
Could be.
Who was the woman who was murdered?
Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
Doesn't say. Doesn't seem to have been robbery.
I told you. Sex maniac.
Oh, this is my wife, Mollie, Miss Casewell.
How do you do?
It's an awful night. Perhaps you'd like to come up to your room. The water's hot if you'd like a bath.
You're right, I would.
Oh! Naughty, naughty. No. Mrs. Boyle's favorite chair. You were there, and now you're here.
I really must get on with things in the kitchen. Major Metcalf's nice. He won't be an issue. It's Mrs. Boyle who really frightens me. We must have a nice dinner. So I was thinking of opening 2 cans of minced beef and cereals, and a tin of peas, and mashed potatoes. Oh, and there's stewed figs and custard. Do you think that will be all right?
Oh, yes, I should think so. Not very original, perhaps.
Do let me help. Oh, I do adore cooking. You got eggs, haven't you? Why not an omelette?
Oh, yes. Keep a lot of fowls, and they don't go down as well as they should, but we've got plenty of eggs.
And if you got a bottle of cheap any type wine, you could add it to the minced beef and cereals, did you say?
Yes.
Show me where the kitchen is and what you've got, and I dare say I'll have an inspiration.
Come on. Isn't he sweet? He's put on an apron and he's getting all the things together and he says, leave it all to him, don't come back for half an hour. If our guests want to do the cooking for themselves, it will save me a lot of trouble.
Why on earth did you give him the best room?
I told you he liked the four-poster.
Oh, he liked the pretty four-poster.
Giles.
Twat. I've got no use for his kind. And anyways, you didn't handle the suitcase. I did.
Oh, had it got bricks in it?
No. Had no weight at all. If you asked me, there was nothing inside it. It's probably just one of those young men that go around bilking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. That Miss Casewell's rather peculiar, though, don't you think?
Terrible female if she is a female.
Find it rather hard that all of our guests are either unpleasant or odd. Anyway, that Major Metcalf's nice, though, don't you think?
Probably drinks.
Oh, do you think so?
No, I don't. I'm just feeling rather depressed. At any rate now, we know the worst. They've all arrived.
Who could that be?
Probably the Corver Street murderer!
Don't.
Oh my!
1,000 pardons. Where am I?
This is Monkswell Manor guest house.
But what stupendous good fortune, madame. What an answer to prayer, a guest house, and a charming hostess. Alas, my Rolls Royce has run into a snowdrift. Blinding snow everywhere. I do not know where I am. Perhaps I think to myself, I shall freeze to death. But then I take a little bag. I stagger through the snow. I see before me big iron gates, a habitation. I am saved. Twice I have fallen to the snow as I come up your drive, but at last I arrive, and immediately despair turns to joy. You can let me have a room, yes?
Oh yes.
It's a rather small room, I'm afraid, but all of the others are occupied.
Naturally. You have other guests?
Well, we've just started this place as a guest house and we're rather new at it.
Charming.
Would you like to get your luggage out of the car?
That is of no consequence. I have locked the car securely.
But wouldn't it be better to get it in?
No. I can assure you, on a night like this, there'll be no thieves abroad. And as for me, my wants are very simple. I have all I need, right here, in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
You'd better get thoroughly warm. I'll see about your room. It's a rather cold room, I'm afraid, because it faces north, but all of the others are occupied.
You have other guests, then?
Oh, yes, there's Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalf and Miss Casewell and a young man called Christopher Wren, and now you.
Ah, yes, the unexpected guest. The guest you did not invite. The guest who just appeared from nowhere, out of the storm. It sounds quite dramatic, does it not? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Me? I am a man of mystery. But now I tell you this, I complete the picture. From now on, there will be no more arrivals and no departures either. By tomorrow, perhaps even already, we are cut from civilization. No butcher, no baker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers. Nobody and nothing but ourselves. It could not suit me better. My name, by the way, is Paravicini.
Oh, yes. Ours is Ralston.
Mr. and Mrs. Ralston. And this is Monkswell Manor Guest House, you said? Monkswell Manor Guest House. Good. Perfect. Perfect.
I consider it most dishonest not to have told me they were just starting this place.
Well, everything's got to have a beginning, you know. Excellent breakfast this morning, good coffee, scrambled eggs, homemade marmalade. All nicely served, too. Little woman does it all herself.
Amateurs. There should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch, too.
Corned beef.
But very well disguised corned beef, red wine in it. Mrs. Ralston promised to make a pie for us tonight. Sounds delicious.
These radiators are really not topped. I shall speak about it.
Excellent beds, too. At least mine was. Hope yours was as well.
It was quite adequate. I don't quite see why the best bedroom should have been given to that very peculiar young man.
Got here ahead of us. First come, first served.
From the advertisement, I got quite a different impression of what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room in a much larger space altogether, with bridge and other amenities.
Regular old Tabby's delight.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, I quite see what you mean. Yes.
Oh, indeed. I shan't stay here long.
No. 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 I don't suppose you will.
Really, that is a very peculiar young man. Unbalanced mentally, I shouldn't wonder.
Think he's escaped from a lunatic asylum?
Shouldn't be surprised at all.
Giles,
Yes?
could you clear the snow away from the back door again?
Coming.
I'll give you a hand, what? Good exercise. Must have exercise.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Quite all right.
What an incredible young woman, carrying a carpet sweeper to the front hall. Aren't there any back stairs?
Yes, nice back stairs. Very convenient. If there was a fire.
Then why not use them? Anyways, all the housework should have been done this morning before lunch.
I gather our hostess had to cook the lunch.
All very haphazard and amateurish. There should be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
No, indeed. The lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Poor lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you are socialists.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm not a red. More pale pink. But I don't take much interest in politics. I live abroad.
I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
I don't have to cook and clean, as I gather most people have to do in this country.
This country has gone sadly downhill. I had to sell my house last year. Everything was too difficult.
Hotels and guest houses are easier.
They certainly solve some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
Oh, it depends. I've got some business to see to, but when it's done, I shall go back.
To France?
No,
Italy?
no.
Would you mind not having that on quite so loud? I find it rather distracting when one is trying to write letters.
Do you?
If you don't particularly want to listen just now...
It's my favorite music. There's a writing table in there.
I know, but it's much warmer in here.
Much warmer, I agree. Bloody old witch.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Wherever I go, that woman, she seems to hunt me down. And then she glares at me. Positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that all right?
Oh yes, it served its purpose.
What purpose?
Tactics, boy.
Oh. You mean her?
You pinched the best share. I've got it now.
You drove her out. I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her at all. Let's think of ways we can annoy her, shall we? I'd love to see her go away from this place.
In this? Not a hope.
Oh, but when the snow melts.
Oh, when the snow melts, lots of things may have happened.
Yes. Yes, that's quite true. Snow's rather lovely, isn't it? Makes one forget things.
Doesn't make me forget.
How fierce you sound.
I was thinking.
What sort of thinking?
Ice on a bedroom jug. Chilblains raw and bleeding, one thin ragged blanket. A child shivering with cold and fear.
Oh, it sounds far too grim. What is it? A novel?
You didn't know the writer, did you?
Are you?
Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, I'm not.
Hello? This is Monkswell Manor Guest House. No, I'm afraid Mr. Ralston can't come to the telephone just now. This is Mrs. Ralston speaking. Who? The Berkshire Police? Oh, yes, Superintendent Hogbin. Well, no, I'm afraid that's impossible. We're snowed up, completely snowed up. Well, he'd never get here. The roads are impassable. But what? Yes. Very well. Hello? Hello?
Mollie, do you know where there's another spade?
The police have just rung up.
Trouble with the police, eh? Serving liquor without a license?
They say they're sending an inspector or a sergeant or something.
But they'll never get here.
Well, that's what I told them, but they seemed quite confident that he would.
Nonsense. Even a jeep couldn't get through in all this. What was it all about?
Well, that's what I asked, but he wouldn't tell me. He just said to impress upon my husband to listen to whatever Sergeant Trotter, I think it was, had to say, and to follow his instructions implicitly.
What on earth do you think we've done?
Do you think it was those nylons from Gibraltar?
No. I did remember to get the wireless license, didn't I?
Yes, it's in the kitchen.
I'd have rather near shaved with another car the other day. It was entirely the other fellow's fault.
Well, we must have done something.
All we got to do was running this place, some tin pot regulation and ministry, rather. You practically can't avoid it nowadays.
I wish we'd never started this place, and we're going to be snowed up, and we're going to run out of reserve tins, and everybody's cross.
Mollie, darling, everything's all right at the moment. I filled up the coal scuttles, and I brought in the wood, and I've stoked the aga and done the hens. I'll go stoke the boiler next, and chop some kindling. You know, Mollie, think of it. Must be something pretty serious to send a police sergeant out here. Must something really urgent.
Mr. Ralston, do you know the central heating in the library is practically stone cold?
I'm sorry, Miss Boyle. We're a bit short on coke.
I am paying 7 guineas a week here. 7 guineas, and I do not want to freeze.
I'll go and stoke it out for you.
Mrs. Ralston, if you don't mind my saying so, there is a very extraordinary young man you have staying here. His manners and his ties, and does he even brush his hair?
Well, he's an extremely brilliant young architect.
I beg your pardon?
Christopher Wren, he's an architect.
My dear young woman, I have naturally heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. You young people seem to think that no one is educated but yourselves.
Yes, well, I'm talking about this Wren. His name is Christopher. His parents called him that with the hopes that he'd be an architect, and he is, or nearly one, so that's all that matters.
Sounds like a fishy story to me. I should make some inquiries about him if I were you. What do you know of him?
Well, just about as much as I know about you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you're both paying us 7 guineas a week, and that's really all I need to know, isn't it?
You are young and inexperienced and should accept advice from someone more knowledgeable than yourself. And what about this foreigner?
What about him?
You weren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away a bona fide traveller is against the law, Mrs. Boyle. You should know that.
Why do you say that?
Weren't you a magistrate sitting on the bench, Mrs. Boyle?
All I can say is that this Paravicini or whatever he calls himself seems to me...
Beware, dear lady. You talk of the devil, and here he is.
I didn't hear you come in.
I came in on tiptoe, like this. Nobody ever hears me if I do not want them to. And I find that very amusing.
Indeed.
Now, there was a young lady.
I must get on with my letters. I'll see if it's warmer in the drawing room.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
Everything's rather difficult this morning. Because of the snow.
Ah, yes. Snow makes things difficult, does it not? Or else it makes it easy. Yes. Very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
There is quite a lot you do not know. I, for one, don't think you know very much about running a guest house.
Well, we mean to make a go of it.
Bravo. Bravo.
Well, I'm not such a very bad cook, and...
You are without a doubt an enchanting cook. May I give you a little word of warning, Mrs. Ralston? You and your husband must not be too trusting, you know. Have you any references with these guests of yours?
Well, is that usual? I always thought that people just came.
It is advisable to know a little bit about the people who sleep under your roof. Take, for example, myself. I show up saying that my car is overturned in a snowdrift. What do you know of me? Nothing at all. I could be a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer.
Oh.
And you see, you know just as little of your other guests.
Yes, but about Mrs. Boyle,
The drawing room is far too cold. I shall write to my letters in here.
Allow me to poke the fire for you.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston, is your husband about? I'm afraid that the pipes of the downstairs cloakroom are frozen.
Oh, what an awful day. First the police, and then the pipes, and now...
Police?
Police, did you say?
Well, yes, they've just rung up to say they're sending a sergeant or something, but I don't think he'll ever get here.
The ruddy coke's more than half stone, and the price. Though, is anything the matter?
I hear the police are on their way here. Why?
Oh, they'll never get here. Why, the drift must be 5 feet deep. No one will arrive today. Excuse me, Mr. Paravicini. May I put these down?
Are you Mr. Ralston?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Can I get these skis off and stow them somewhere?
Yes, go to the front door. I'll meet you there.
Thank you, sir.
I suppose that's what we pay our police force nowadays, to go around enjoying themselves at winter sports.
Why did you send for the police, Mrs. Ralston?
Well, I didn't.
Who's that man? He passed by the drawing room window all covered in snow and looking terribly hardy.
Believe it or not, but that man is a policeman. A policeman. Skiing.
This is... Oh, Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Good afternoon.
You can't be a sergeant. You're too young.
I'm not quite as young as I look, madam.
But terribly hardy.
Thank you.
But stow your keys away under the stairs.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston, but may I use your telephone?
Of course, Major Metcalf.
Thank you.
He's very attractive, isn't he? I've always found the police so attractive.
No brains. You can see that at a glance.
Hello? 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 Mrs. Ralston, this telephone is dead. Quite dead.
No, that can't be. It was all right about half an hour ago.
I suppose the line's gone with the weight of the snow.
So we're quite cut off from the rest of the world. That's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything to laugh at.
No, indeed.
Private joke of my own. Hiss, the sleuth is returning.
All right, now we can get to business. Mrs. Ralston, Mr. Ralston.
Do you want to see us alone? We can go into the library.
Oh, that's not necessary. It'll save some time if everybody's present. If I might sit at this table.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you.
Oh, do hurry up and tell us. What have we done?
Done? Oh, it's nothing of that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand me.
Police protection?
Yes, it relates to the death of Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon of 24 Culver Street, London West 2, who was murdered yesterday the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case.
Oh, yes, I heard it on the wireless. The woman who was strangled.
That's right, madam. Now, the first thing I want to know from you is if you were acquainted with Mrs. Lyon.
No.
You mayn't have known her under the name of Lyon. Lyon wasn't her real name. She had a police record, and her fingerprints were on file, so we were able to identify her without difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Stanning. Her husband was a farmer, John Stanning, who resided at Longbridge Farm, not very far from here.
Longbridge Farm? Is that where those
Yes,
children...
the Longbridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss. The Corrigans. 2 boys and a girl, brought before the court in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with Mr. and Mrs. Stanning at Longbridge Farm. One of the children subsequently died as the result of persistent ill treatment and criminal neglect. Case made a bit of a sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Stanning died in prison. Mrs. Stanning served her sentence and was duly released. Yesterday, as I say, she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Who did it?
I'm coming to that, madam. A notebook was picked up near the scene of the crime, and in that notebook was written 2 addresses. One was 24 Culver Street. The other was Monkswell Manor.
What?
Yes, sir. That's why Superintendent Hogben, on receiving this information from Scotland Yard, thought it imperative for me to come out here to see if there was any connection with this house or anyone in this house.
There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It must be a coincidence.
No, sir. Superintendent Hogben doesn't believe it is a coincidence. He'd have come here himself if it was in any way possible. Under the weather conditions, and as I can ski, he sent me out here to get 4 particulars of everyone in the household, report back to him by phone, and take what measures I thought fit to ensure the safety of this household.
Safety? What danger does he think we're in? Lord, he's not suggesting this could be another murder here.
I don't want to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
That's what I'm here to find out.
The whole thing's crazy.
Yes, sir. It's because it's crazy that it's dangerous.
Nonsense.
I must say, it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there something you haven't told us, Sergeant?
Yes, ma'am. In the notebook was written the 2 addresses, and below the addresses was written 3 blind mice. And on the dead woman's body was a paper that said, "This is the first." Below those words was a bar of music and a drawing of 3 little mice. The music was the tune of 3 blind mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind mice.
3 blind mice. See how they run. They all ran after the farmer's wife. It's horrible.
So there were 3 children and 1 died.
Yes, the youngest boy of 11.
Well, what happened to the other 2?
The girl was adopted by someone. We're unable to trace her present whereabouts. And the eldest boy will now be about 22 years of age, deserted from the army, and according to the army psychologist, definitely schizophrenic. A bit queer in the head, that's to say.
And you think that it was he who killed Mrs. Stanning?
Yes.
That he's going to come here and kill us all, one of us? But why?
That's what I've got to find out from you. As the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now, you, sir, state that you yourself have never had any connection with the Longridge Farm case.
No.
And the same goes for you, madam.
Well, I mean, well, no connection.
What about servants?
We haven't got any servants, and that reminds me, Sergeant, I must get on with things in the kitchen. I'll be there if you need me.
That's quite all right, Mrs. Ralston. Now, may I please have everybody's name?
This is quite ridiculous. We are merely staying in a kind of hotel. We only arrived yesterday. We've nothing to do with this place.
But you've planned to come here in advance. You booked your rooms ahead.
Well, yes, all except Mr.
Paravicini. My car overturned in a snowdrift.
I see. Now, what I'm getting at is anyone who's been following you around might very well know that you are coming here. Now, there's just one more thing I want to know, and I want to know it quick. Which one of you is it that has some connection with that Longridge Farm case? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you's in danger, deadly danger. I need to know which of you that is. All right, you won't. I'll ask you one by one, starting with you, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident, Mr. Paravicini.
Paravicini. But my dear Inspector, I know nothing but nothing of what you've been talking about. I am a stranger in this country. I know none of these local affairs of bygone years.
Mrs.
Boyle. I don't see, really, I consider it an impertinence. Why on earth should I have anything to do with such distressing business?
Miss...
Casewell. Leslie Casewell. I never heard of Longridge Farm and I know nothing about it.
You, sir.
Metcalf, Major. Read about the case in the papers at the time. I was stationed at Edinburgh. No personal knowledge.
And you.
Christopher Wren. I was a mere child at the time, so I don't even remember hearing anything about it.
And that's all you have to say? Any of you? Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll have yourself to blame. Now, Mr. Ralston, may I please have a look around the house? Yes.
Here's how melodramatic. He's very attractive, isn't he? I always have admired the police. They're so stern and hard-boiled. And just imagine what a kick the murderer is getting out of all this. 3 blind mice. How does the tune go?
Really, Mr. Wren?
Don't you like it? Why, it's a signature tune. The tune of a murderer.
Melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
But just wait, Mrs. Boyle, till I creep up behind you. You feel my hands on your throat.
That will do, Christopher. It's a poor joke. In fact, it's not a joke at all.
Oh, but it is. That's just what makes it so deliciously macabre. If only you could see your faces.
Singularly ill-mannered and neurotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Giving our policemen a conducted tour around the house.
Your friend, the architect, has been behaving in the most abnormal manner.
The young fellow seems nervy nowadays. I dare say he'll grow out of it.
Nerves. I haven't any patience with nerves. I haven't any nerves.
Oh, perhaps that goes just as well for you, Mrs. Boyle.
Why do you say that?
I believe you were a magistrate, sitting on the bench at the time. In fact, you were single-handedly responsible for sending those children to Longridge Farm.
Really, Major Metcalf, I can hardly be held responsible. We had reports from welfare workers. The couple was most eager to have the children. Fresh eggs and milk and a healthy out-of-doors life.
No. Kicks, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
But how was I to know? They were very civilly spoken.
I was right. It was you.
One tries to do a public duty and all one gets is abuse.
You must forgive me, but indeed I find this all most amusing. I enjoy myself greatly. Oh, boy.
I never did like that man.
Where did he come from last night?
I don't know.
Looks like a bit of a spiv to me. Makes his face up too. Rouge and powder. Disgusting. He must be quite old.
And yet he skips about as though he were quite young.
You'll be wanting more wood. I'll get it.
It's nearly dark out. It's only 4 in the afternoon. I'll turn the lights on.
Now, where did I leave my pen?
What a horrid little tune.
Don't you like it? Reminds you of your childhood, perhaps an unhappy childhood?
I was very happy as a child.
You were lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No.
Oh. I'm sorry.
Oh, but all that's a long time ago. One gets over things.
Perhaps.
Or doesn't one? Bloody hard to say.
Well, they say that whatever happens to you when you're a child matters more than anything else.
They say. They say. Who says?
Well, psychologists.
Old humbug. Just a bloody lots of nonsense. I've no use for psychologists and psychiatrists.
Well, I've never really had much to do with them.
A good thing for you, you haven't. It's just a lot to hooey, the whole thing. Life's what you make of it, go straight, don't look back.
But sometimes you can't help but look back.
Nonsense, it's a question of willpower.
I suppose. But things come along that make you remember.
It depends on what you're talking about.
Well, I hardly know what I'm talking about, and...
Nothing from the past is going to affect me, except in the way I want it to.
Well, everything's all right upstairs.
Trapdoor.
What's in here?
Dining room.
What's in there?
Drawing room.
Oh, close that door! This place is full of drafts!
I'm sorry, madam, but I've got to get a lay of the land.
Ollie, what's all this?
That completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. I think I'll make my call back to Superintendent Hogman now.
Oh, but you can't call. The line's dead.
What? Since when?
Well, Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
But it was all right earlier. Superintendent Hogman got through all right.
Yes, but I suppose since then the line's been down with the snow.
I wonder if it may have been cut.
Cut. But who could cut it?
Mr. Ralston, just how much do you know about these people that are staying at your guest house?
We don't know anything. We know that Miss Boyle wrote from a Bournemouth hotel, and Major Metcalf in an address in... Where was it?
Leamington.
Wren from Hampstead. Miss Casewell from a private hotel in Kensington, and Miss Paravicini, as we told you, appeared out of the blue last night. They've all got ration books, that sort of thing, I suppose.
Yes, I shall go into all that, of course. But there's not much reliance to be placed on that sort of evidence.
Well, yes, but even if this crazy killer was trying to get here to kill us all, well, he never could. We're snowed up. We can't go anywhere until it melts.
Unless he's already here.
Here already?
Why not, Mr. Ralston? These people arrived here yesterday, some hours after the murder, Mrs. Stanning. Plenty of time to get here.
But except for Miss Paravicini, they all booked beforehand.
Why not, Mr. Ralston? These crimes were planned.
Crimes. There's only been one crime. In Culver Street. Why are you so certain there's going to be another here?
That it will happen here, no. I hope to prevent that. That it will be attempted, yes.
Wow. Fantastic.
It's not fantastic, it's just facts.
But you have a description of this man in London.
Medium height, indeterminate build, darkish overcoat, lightish felt hat, spoke in a whisper. There are darkish overcoats in the hall now. This one's yours, Mr. Ralston. There are 2 lightish felt hats.
I still don't believe it.
You see, it's this telephone wire that worries me. If it's been cut...
I must get on with my vegetables.
Is there an extension?
Beg your pardon, did you say something?
Yes, I said, is there an extension?
Yes, up in our bedroom.
Go up there and try it for me, will you?
Who let this window open? Ugh. There should be a staff to do this. So filthy.
Understand what I may term as the mechanics of fear, you have to study the precise effect produced on the human mind. Imagine, for instance, that you are alone, in a room. It is late in the afternoon. A door opens softly behind you.
I can't seem to find a program worth listening to. Turn those lights back on this instant! Come on now! Oh, turn that down! Don't get near me! No! No! Ah!
What's all this? What a noise! Why is it all dark? What's the radio doing on?
Think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think.
I can't think. My head's numb.
Mrs. Boyle had only just been killed when you got to her. You came through the kitchen. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anybody as you came along the hallway?
I think I might have heard a door creak and then shut just as I came out of the kitchen.
Which door?
I don't know.
Think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, right, left.
I don't know. I'm not even sure I heard anything at all.
Can't you stop bullying her? Can't you see she's all in?
We're investigating a murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to now, nobody has taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. She held out on me with information. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. And unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly, mind, there's going to be another death.
Another? Nonsense, why?
Because there were only 2 addresses in that notebook we found. Now, at 24 Culver Street, there was only one possible victim. Here at Monkswell Manor, there's a wider field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there should be 2 people brought here by chance, both of which having a share in the Longridge Farm case.
Given certain circumstances, it wouldn't be so much of a coincidence. Think it out, Miss Casewell. Now I want to get down quite clearly where everyone was at the time Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen preparing vegetables. You came through this door, the hall was dark and the radio was blaring. You switched on the light, saw Mrs. Boyle and screamed.
Yes. I screamed and at last people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. A lot of people from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now, when I got through that window to trace the telephone wire, you, Mr. Ralston, went up to the bedroom that you and Mrs. Ralston occupy. Where were you when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
I was still up in the bedroom. The extension telephone was dead too. I looked out the window to see if there's any signs of it being cut. But there wasn't. Just after I closed the window again, I heard Mollie scream and rushed down.
Those simple actions took you a rather long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
I would say you definitely took your time over them.
I was thinking about something.
Very well. Mr. Wren, I'll have your account of where you were.
I'd been in the kitchen seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. After that, I went upstairs to my room.
Why?
It's quite a natural thing to want to go to one's room, don't you think, Sergeant? One does want to be alone sometimes.
You went to your bedroom because you wanted to be alone?
And I wanted to brush my hair and tidy up.
You wanted to brush your hair?
Anyways, that's where I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And you came down?
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs.
I came down the back stairs, there nearer to my room.
Did you go up to your room by the back stairs, or did you come through here?
I went up the back stairs too.
I see. Mr. Paravicini.
I have already told you. I was playing the piano in the drawing room. Through there, Inspector.
I'm not an inspector, just a sergeant, Mr. Paravicini. Did anyone hear you playing the piano?
I do not expect so. I was playing very softly, with one finger so.
You were playing Three Blind Mice.
Is that so?
It is a catchy little tune. It is, how shall I say, a haunting little tune. Don't you all agree?
It's horrid.
And yet it runs in people's heads. Someone was whistling it, too.
Whistling it? Where?
I'm not sure. Perhaps in the front hall, perhaps on the stairs, perhaps even upstairs in a bedroom.
Who was whistling Three Blind Mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Paravicini?
No, Inspector. I beg your pardon, Sergeant. I would do nothing like that.
Well, go on. You were playing the piano.
With one finger so. And then I hear the radio playing very loudly. Someone was shouting on it. It offended my ears. And after that, Suddenly, I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs, Mr. Wren upstairs, Mr. Paravicini in the drawing room. Miss Casewell,
I was writing letters in the library.
could you hear anything that was going on in here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
And what did you do then?
I came in here.
At once?
I think so.
You said you were writing letters in the library when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you came in here hurriedly.
Yes.
Yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letter on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Dearest Jessie, a friend or relation of yours?
That's none of your bloody business.
Perhaps not. Now, Major Metcalf, you said you were in the cellars. Why?
Looking around. Just looking around. I opened the cupboard door under the near the kitchen. Lots of junk and sports tackle. And I noticed there was another door inside it. I opened it and saw a flight of steps, and I went down. Nice cellars you've got.
Glad you like them?
Not at all. Crypt of an old monastery. Probably why this place is called Monkswell.
We're not engaged in an antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. We're investigating a murder. Now, Mrs. Ralston has told us she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shuts with a creak. It could be, you know, that after killing Mrs. Boyle, the murderer heard Mrs. Ralston coming from the kitchen, slipped into the dining room, but pulling the door after him.
A lot of things could be.
There would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard.
Mine are there, all right. But most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual, but all criminals slip up sooner or later.
Now, I do wonder what you mean by that, Sergeant.
Look here. There's only one person here who fits the bill, and I would
Please,
just like to
Mr.
speak...
Ralston, I am in charge of this investigation.
Very well, but if you want information...
Mr. Ralston! Thank you. Now, I've got to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And now let me tell you something. You all had opportunity.
But I was
There are two staircases. Anyone could go up by one and come down by the other. Anyone could go down to the cellars by the door near the kitchen, up the flight of steps, and to the trap door here. The vital fact was all of you were alone at the time the murder was committed.
But there's only one use because they were all under suspicion. It's absurd.
In a murder case, Mr. Ralston, everyone is under suspicion.
But there's you know pretty well who killed that woman in Culver Street. You think it's the oldest of the children at the farm? A man now at the age of 23. A mentally abnormal young man. Well, damn it all, there's only one person here who fits the bill!
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me. Everyone's always been against me. You're going to frame me for murder. It's persecution.
Steady, lad. Steady.
It's all right, Chris. No one's out to get you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not going to arrest anyone. I've got to have evidence to do that. I haven't gotten any evidence yet.
I think you're crazy, Mollie. And you, too. If it's just for best, then you should put him under arrest. It's only fair for the rest of us.
No, wait. Wait, Giles. Sergeant Trotter, can I speak to you for a minute?
Certainly, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you please go into the dining room?
I will be staying.
No, Giles, you two,
Mollie,
please.
what's come
please.
over-
Just go.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you wanted to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that this crazy killer is the eldest of those 3 children at the farm, but you don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we know is the woman that joined her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed. The woman magistrate responsible for placing them there has been killed. The telephone wire that links me to police headquarters has been cut.
But you don't even know that.
No, Mrs. Ralston, I know. The line was deliberately cut. I found the place just outside the front door.
I see.
Sit down, Mrs. Ralston. You see, I'm going by probability. It all points one way. Mental instability, childish mentality, and the army psychologist report.
I know that it all seems to point to Christopher, but I don't believe it was Christopher. There has to be other possibilities.
Such as?
Well, hadn't those children any relations at all?
Their mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken away from her.
Well, what about their father?
Their father was an army sergeant serving abroad. He's probably discharged from the army by now, and it may take some time to track him down.
You don't know where he is?
No, Mrs. Ralston, but I can assure you the police will take every eventuality into account.
You don't know where he is at this minute. And if the son was mentally unstable, well, the father might as well be unstable too.
Yes, it's possible.
And if he came home after having been imprisoned by the Japs and having suffered terribly, if he came home to find his wife dead and that his children had gone through some horrible experience and one of them had died through it, well, he might just go off his head a bit and want revenge.
That's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's quite possible.
So the killer could have been middle-aged or even old. You know, when I said the police were coming, Major Metcalf was frightfully upset. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf?
Middle-aged, soldier. And I know that he seems nice and normal, but it might not show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
But it's only Christopher who's a suspect. There's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Mr. Paravicini did drop the poker when I said the police were coming.
Mr. Paravicini.
I know that he seems foreign and old, but he might not be as old as he looks. He wears makeup on his face. Miss Casewell noticed it too, and I know that it sounds very melodramatic, but he might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you, that it shouldn't be young Mr. Wren?
He's just so hopeless and unhappy.
Mrs. Ralston, let me tell you something. I've had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. The boy, Georgie, the father, and someone else. There was a sister, you remember.
Oh, the sister?
It could have been a woman who killed Maureen Lyon. A woman. Darkish overcoat, the muffler pulled well up, hat pulled well down, and the killer spoke in a whisper, you know. It's the voice that gives the sex away. Yes, it could have been a woman.
Miss Casewell.
She looks a bit old for the part. Oh, yes, Mrs. Ralston. There's a very wide field here at Monkswell Manor. There's yourself, for instance.
Me?
You're about the right age.
Oh, but that's absolutely...
No. I've got no means of checking what you have to say to me right now, remember. And then there's your husband.
Giles?
He and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Suppose Giles looks older in his years and Wren looks younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. How much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
How much do I know about Giles? Don't be silly.
You've been married how long?
Just a year.
Where did you meet?
At a dance in London. We went to a party.
Did you meet his people?
He hasn't any people. They're all dead.
They're all dead.
Yes. Would you make it sound all wrong? His father was a barrister and his mother died when he was a baby.
You're only telling me what he's told you, Mrs. Ralston.
Oh, yes,
You
but
don't know it of your own knowledge.
it's outrageous
You'd
that...
be surprised, Mrs. Ralston, just how many cases like yours we get. Especially since the war. Homes broken up, families dead. Fellow says he's been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. There aren't any backgrounds nowadays, so young people settle their own affairs. It's parents and relatives that used to make the inquiries before consenting to engagement. That's all done away with. Girl just marries her man. She doesn't find out for a year or two that he's an absconding bank clerk, an army deserter, or something equally undesirable. How long had you known Giles before you married him?
Just 3 weeks.
And you don't know anything about him?
That's absurd. I know that everything that there is to know about him. He's Giles. And it's insane to suggest that he's some crazy homicidal maniac when he wasn't even in London yesterday when the murders took place.
Where was he? Here?
No, he went to the country to get some netting for our chickens.
Bring it back with him?
No, it wasn't the right kind.
Do you have an ABC? Oh, yes. Only 30 minutes by train, a little longer by car to London.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. This is your husband's coat?
Yes.
Evening news, yesterday's. Sold on streets about 3:30 p.m.
I don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you?
Mollie,
You startled me.
where is he? Where has he gone?
Oh,
The sergeant.
oh, he went out that way.
Oh. If only I could get away. Somehow. Somewhere, some way. Is there anywhere I could hide in the house?
Hide?
Yes, from him.
Why?
But darling, they're all so frightfully against me. They're going to frame me for a murder. Particularly your husband.
Never mind him. Got to stop running sometime, Chris.
Why do you say that?
Oh, it's true, isn't it?
Oh, yes. It's quite true.
Your name's not really Christopher Wren, is it?
No.
You're not really an architect?
No.
Well, why did you...
Call myself Christopher Wren. Well, it just amused me. And the children at school, they used to laugh at me and call me Little Christopher Robin. Robin. Wren. Association of ideas. It was hell being at school.
Well, what's your real name?
We needn't go into that. I ran away whilst I was doing my army services. It was all so beastly, I hated it. Oh, yes. Just like the unknown murderer. I told you I was the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother...
Yes, your mother?
Everything would have been all right if she hadn't died. She would have looked after me and taken care of me.
Got to grow up sometime, Chris. You can't go on being looked after all your life. Things happen to you. You just have to bear them. You have to go on, just as usual.
But one can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Did it have something to do with Giles?
No, it was long before I met Giles.
Well, you must have been very young, almost a child.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. I try to put it out of my mind. I try never to think about it.
So you're running away from things too, instead of facing them?
I suppose, in a way, I am. You know, considering I've never seen you before yesterday, we seem to know each other quite well.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
I suppose there's a sort of sympathy between us, and...
Anyways, you think I ought to stick it out?
Frankly, what else can you do?
Well, I might pinch the sergeant's skis. I can ski quite well.
That would be frightfully stupid. It's almost like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
I'm sure that he doesn't. Well, I don't know. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Who?
Sergeant Trotter. Puts things into your head. He makes you think things that aren't true, that can't possibly be true.
What is all this?
I don't believe it. I
What
won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on, out with it.
Do you see this?
Yes.
What is it? An evening paper. A London paper. It was in Giles' overcoat pocket. Only Giles wasn't in London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all day.
But he wasn't. He went in the car to look for some wire for our chickens, but he didn't bring any back.
Well, that's all right. He did go up to London after all.
Then why pretend he was out driving across the countryside?
Well, perhaps with the news of the murder.
Well, he didn't know about the murder, did he? Did he?
Good gracious, Mollie, surely you don't think that... Surely the sergeant doesn't think...
I don't know what Sergeant Trotter thinks, but he asks you questions, then you begin to doubt. You begin to think that someone you love and know quite well might be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends, and all of a sudden they're not your friends anymore. They're just different people pretending. Perhaps we can't trust anybody. Perhaps everybody's a stranger.
I seem to be interrupting something.
No, we were just talking, and I must get on with the kitchen. I've got spinach and potatoes.
Yeah, I'll come give you a hand.
No! You won't.
Giles.
Tete-a-tetes aren't very healthy things at the present. You stay out of the kitchen and stay away from my wife.
But really, look here.
No! Stay out of the kitchen and keep away from my wife. She's not going to be the next victim.
That's what you think about me.
I already said so, haven't I? There's a killer loose in the house, and you're the only one that seems to fit the bill.
I'm not the only one who fits the bill.
I don't see anyone else who does.
How blind you are, or do you just pretend to be blind?
I'm telling you, I'm worrying about my wife's safety.
So am I. And I'm not going to leave her alone with you.
What the hell?
No, Giles! Chris, please, just go.
I'm not leaving.
Go, Chris, please.
I shan't be far away.
Mollie, what's wrong with you? Practically prepared to trap yourself in the kitchen with a homicidal maniac?
He isn't.
You've only got to look at him to know he's balmy.
He isn't. He's just unhappy, and he's not dangerous. I'd know if he was dangerous in any way. I can take care of myself.
That's what Miss Boyle said.
Giles, don't.
Perhaps you'd met him before. Perhaps you suggested to him to come here, and you'd pretend to meet for the first time. All cooked up between you, isn't it?
Between us? What do you mean between us? There's nothing between us. I'm sorry for him, that's all.
What is there between you and that wretched boy?
Ugh. Nothing.
Isn't it odd that he should come and stay at a out-of-the-way place like this one?
No odder than that of Miss Casewell and Major Metcalf and Mrs. Boyle should.
I read in the papers once that these homicidal cases were able to attract women. Looks as though they were true. How long has this been going on? When did you first meet him?
Don't be ridiculous. I've never set eyes on Christopher Wren until he arrived yesterday.
Well, perhaps you've been running up to London to meet him on the sly.
That's absurd. I haven't been up to London in weeks.
You haven't been up to London in weeks, is that so?
It's quite true.
It is. And what's this? This is one of the gloves you were wearing yesterday. I picked it up this afternoon when I was talking to Sergeant Trotter. And look what's inside it. A London bus ticket.
Oh, that.
So not only did you go to the village yesterday, you went to London as well.
All right. I went to...
But whilst I was safely racing around the countryside?
Whilst you were racing around the countryside.
What? It's true.
Is it? Then what's this?
Where did you get that?
It was in your overcoat pocket.
Anyone could have put it there.
Did they? No! You weren't in London.
All right, I was in London, but I didn't go to meet a woman there.
Didn't you? Are you sure you didn't?
What did you mean?
Go away, don't come any closer.
What's the matter?
Don't touch me.
Did you go to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Don't be a fool! Of course I didn't!
Then why did you go?
Perhaps I shan't tell you that. Perhaps I've forgotten why I went.
What's wrong with you, Mollie? You're different all of a sudden. It's as though I don't know who you are.
Perhaps you never did know me. What I thought or felt or suffered before you met me.
Mollie, you're crazy.
All right, I'm crazy. Why not? Perhaps it's fun to be crazy!
What the hell are you? Why?
Now. I do hope our two young people are not saying a little more than they mean. One is so apt in these lovers' quarrels.
Lovers' quarrels. Ha! That's good.
Quite so, quite so. I know just how you feel. I have been through all this myself once when I was a younger man. Jeunesse, jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been married long, I imagine.
That's none of your business, Mr. Paravicini.
No business at all. I have just come in to inform you that the sergeant cannot find his skis, and I'm afraid he's very annoyed.
Christopher.
What?
He wants to know if by any chance you've moved them, Mr. Ralston.
Certainly not.
Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston, have you removed my skis from where we put them?
Certainly not.
Well, somebody has taken them.
What made you happen to look for them?
The snow is still lying. I need help here, reinforcements. I was going to ski over to Markethampton Police Station and report on the situation.
And now you can't. Dear, dear. Somebody seen to it that you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Yes, what?
Somebody may want to get away.
What did you mean when you said Christopher just now?
Nothing?
So our young architect has hooked it, has he? Very, very interesting.
Is this true, Mrs. Ralston?
Oh, there you are. You haven't gone. Thank goodness.
Mr. Wren, have you removed my skis from where we put them?
You're the ski sergeant. No, why would I?
Mrs. Ralston seemed to think that you would have
Mr.
looked...
Wren is very fond of skiing. I thought perhaps he might have borrowed them to get some exercise.
Exercise.
Now listen, you people, this is a serious matter! Somebody has removed my only chance with communication with the outside world. I want everybody in here at once. Where are they?
I think Miss Casewell has gone upstairs.
I'll get her.
I left Major Metcalf in the dining room. Major Metcalf! He's not there now.
I'll go look for him.
Hello, wanting me?
It's a question of my skis.
Skis.
Mr. Ralston!
Did either of you two remove my skis from the cupboard where we put them?
Goodness no, why should I?
And I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they are gone. Which way did you go up to your room?
By the back stairs.
You passed by that cupboard then.
If you say so, I have no idea where your skis are.
You were actually in that cupboard today.
Yes, I was.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed, I'd gone down to the cellars.
Were the skis there when you passed through?
I haven't the least idea.
Did you see them there?
I can't remember.
You must remember if you saw those skis there!
No good shouting at me, young fellow! I wasn't worried about any damn skis! Architecture of this place is very interesting. I opened the cupboard door and I went down, so I can't tell you if they were there or not.
You realize that you yourself had excellent opportunity of taking them.
Yes, I grant you that, if I wanted to, that is.
The question is, where are they now?
ought to be able to find them if we all set to. Not a case of hand the thimble. Supposing we all set to whacking great things skis.
Not quite so fast, Major Metcalf. That may be, what we're supposed to do.
I don't get you.
I'm in the position where I've got to put myself in a crazy cunning brain. I've got to ask myself what the killer wants from us and what he himself is planning to do next. I've got to try and keep one step ahead of him, because if I don't, there's going to be another murder.
You still don't believe that?
Yes, I do, Miss Casewell. 3 little blind mice. 2 mice cancelled out. Still 1 to be dealt with. There are 6 of you here listening to me. 1 of you's a killer. 1 of you's a killer. I don't know which yet, but I shall. And another of you is the killer's prospective victim. That's the person I'm speaking to now. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. Mrs. Boyle is dead. You, whoever you are holding out on me. Well, don't! Nobody who's killed twice is going to hesitate to kill a 3rd time. And as it is, I don't know which of you it is who needs protection. Come on now. Anyone that has anything, however slight, to reproach themselves with that bygone business better come out with it. All right, you won't. I'll get that killer. I've no doubt of that. But it may be too late for one of you. And I'll tell you another thing. The killer's enjoying this. Oh, yes. He's enjoying himself a good deal. All right, you can go.
Talking of chicken, dear lady, have you ever tried chicken's liver served on toast, thickly smeared with foie gras, with a very thin rasher of bacon just touched with a soup cone of fresh mustard? I will come with you to the kitchen, and we will see what we can concoct together. A charming occupation.
I'll help my wife, Mr. Paravicini.
Your husband is afraid for you. Quite natural under these circumstances. He doesn't fancy you being alone with me. It is my sadistic tendencies he fears, not my dishonorable ones. Alas, what an inconvenience the husband always is. Arrivederla.
Well, I'm sure that Giles doesn't think...
He is very wise. Take no chances. But can I prove to you, or to him, or to our dogged sergeant, that I am not a homicidal maniac? So difficult to prove a negative, isn't it? And suppose that instead I really was.
Don't.
But such a gay little tune, don't you think? She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Sneak, sneak, sneak. Delicious. Just what a child would adore. Cruel things children are. Some of them never grow up.
Stop frightening my wife at once.
It's silly of me. You see, but I found her. Just there. Face was all purple and... I'll never forget it.
I know. It is difficult to forget things, isn't it? You aren't really the forgetting kind.
I must go to the kitchen. I've got things to prepare and... Please, Giles.
What did you say to the lady to upset her?
Oh, me, Sergeant? Just a little innocent fun. I've always been fond of a little joke.
There's nice fun, and then there's fun that's not so nice.
Now, I do wonder what you mean by that, Sergeant.
I've been doing a little wondering about you, sir, and how that car of yours happened to overturn in a snowdrift so conveniently.
Inconveniently, you mean, don't you, Sergeant?
That rather depends on the way you're looking at it. Just where were you bound for exactly last night?
I was on my way to see a friend.
In this neighborhood?
Not so very far from here.
What is the name and address of this friend?
No, really, Sergeant Trotter. Does that matter now? I mean, it has nothing to do with this predicament, has it?
We police always like the fullest information. Now, what did you say this name and address was?
I didn't say.
No, you didn't say. And it seems that you're not going to say. And that's very interesting.
But there could be so many reasons. Amour, discretion, these jealous husbands.
Rather old to be running around the ladies of your time of life, aren't you, Mr. Paravicini?
My dear Sergeant, I am not quite perhaps as old as I look.
That's just what I've been thinking.
What?
That you're not as old as you try to look. A lot of people go around trying to look younger, and when one goes to look older, it does make one ask oneself, why?
Having asked so many questions of people, you ask questions of yourself as well. Isn't that overdoing things?
I might get an answer from myself. I don't get many from you.
Well, try again. That is, if you have any more questions to ask.
One or two. Where were you coming from last night?
That is simple. From London.
What address in London?
I always stay at the Ritz Hotel.
Very nice too, I'm sure. Permanent address?
I dislike permanency.
Business profession?
I play the markets.
Stockbroker?
No. You misunderstand me.
Enjoying this little game, aren't you? Sure of yourself, too. Well, I shouldn't be too sure. You're mixed up in a murder case, Mr. Paravicini, and don't you forget it. Murder isn't just fun in games.
Not even this murder. Oh, you're very serious, Sergeant Trotter. I always thought policemen had no sense of humor. Is the Inquisition over for the moment?
For the moment, yes.
Thank you so much. I shall go and look for your skis in the drawing room, just in case anyone has hidden them in the grand piano.
Just a minute, please.
Were you speaking to me?
Yes, if you'd come sit down, please.
Well, what do you want?
You may have heard the questions I was asking, Mr. Paravicini.
I heard them.
I'd like to have a little information from you.
What do you want to know?
Full name, please.
Leslie Marguerite Catherine Casewell.
Catherine?
I spell it with a K.
Quite so. Address?
Via de Mariposa, Pindeira, Mallorca.
That's in Italy.
It's an island, a Spanish island.
Quite so. Any English address?
Care of Morgan's Bank, Leadenhall Street.
Any other English address?
No,
How long have you been in England, Miss Casewell?
a week.
And how long did you or do you suppose to remain here?
Until I finish what I've came here to do.
And what was that? And what was that?
Sorry, what?
What was it you came here to do?
Oh, I beg your pardon. I was thinking of something else.
You still haven't answered my question.
I don't suppose you know why I should. It's a matter that concerns me alone, a strictly private affair.
All the same, Miss Casewell.
No, I don't believe we're going to argue about it.
Do you mind if I ask you your age?
Not at the least. It's on my passport. I'm 24.
24?
You're thinking I look older. That's quite true.
Do you have anyone who can vouch for you?
My bank can reassure you as to my financial position. I can refer you to a solicitor, a very discreet man. I'm not in the position to give you a social reference. I've lived most of my life abroad.
In Majorca?
In Majorca and other places.
Were you born abroad?
No, I left England when I was 13.
You know, Miss Casewell, I can't quite make you out.
Does it matter?
I don't know. What are you doing here?
It seems to worry you.
It does worry me. You left England when you were 13.
12, 13, thereabouts.
Was your name Casewell then?
It's my name now.
What was your name when you left England? Come on, tell me.
What are you trying to prove?
I want to know what your name was when you left England.
It was a long time ago. I've forgotten.
There are things one doesn't forget.
Possibly.
Unhappiness, despair.
I dare say.
What is your real name?
I told you, Leslie Marguerite Catherine Casewell.
Catherine? What the hell are you doing here?
No, I wish I never come here. No.
I always thought the police weren't allowed to give people the third degree.
I've merely been interrogating Miss Casewell.
You seem to have upset her. What did he do?
No, nothing. It's just all this murder. It's horrible, and it came over me suddenly. I'll go up to my room.
It's impossible. I can't believe it.
What can't you believe? 6 impossible things before breakfast like the Red Queen.
Yes, it's rather like that.
Dear me, you look as if you've seen a ghost.
I've seen something I should have seen before. Blind as a bat I've been. But now I believe I may be able to get somewhere.
So the police have a clue.
Yes, Mr. Wren. The police finally have a clue. I want everybody assembled in here at once. Do you know where they are?
Giles and Mollie are in the kitchen. I've been helping Major Metcalf look for your skis. We've looked in some of the most entertaining of places. But to no avail. I don't know where Paravicini is.
I'll get him. You get the others. Mr. Paravicini?
Yes, Sergeant? What can I do for you? Little Bob policeman has lost his skis and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home dragging a murderer behind them.
What is all this?
Sit down, Major. Mrs. Ralston.
Must I come now? It's very inconvenient.
There are more important things than meals, Mrs. Ralston. For example, Mrs. Boyle won't be wanting another meal.
That's a very tactless way of putting things, Sergeant.
I'm sorry, but I want cooperation, and I intend to get it. Miss Ralston, will you please go upstairs and get Miss Casewell? Tell her it would only be a few minutes.
Have your skis been found, Sergeant?
No, Mrs. Ralston, but I have a very shrewd suspicion on who took them and why. I won't say any more at the present moment.
Please don't. I always think explanations should be kept to the very end. That exciting last chapter, you know.
This isn't a game, Mr. Paravicini.
Isn't it? No, that's where I think you're wrong. I think it is a game. To somebody.
You think the murderer is enjoying himself? Maybe. Maybe.
What is happening?
Sit down, Miss Casewell. Mrs. Ralston. Thank you. Now, you may remember that after the death of Mrs. Boyle, I took statements from each of you. Those statements related to the positions that you were at the time the murder was committed. These statements were as follows. Mrs. Ralston in the kitchen. Mr. Paravicini in the drawing room playing the piano. Mr. Ralston in his bedroom. Mr. Wren, ditto. Miss Casewell in the library writing letters. Major Metcalf in the cellars.
Correct.
I had no means of checking these statements at the present time. They may be true, they may not. To put it quite clearly, 5 of those statements were true. One of them is false. 5 of you are telling the truth. One of you's a liar. I have a plan that may help me discover which of you lied to me. And if I discover that you lied to me, then I know who the murderer is.
Not necessarily. Someone may have lied for another reason.
I rather doubt that.
What's your point? You just said you had no means of checking these statements.
No, Mr. Ralston, but supposing that everyone was to go through them a second time.
Ah, that old chestnut. Reconstruction of the crime.
That's a foreign idea.
Not a reconstruction of the crime, Mr. Paravicini, but a reconstruction of apparently innocent persons.
So you want a repeat performance?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I do.
It's a trap.
What do you mean it's a trap?
It is a trap, I know it is.
I only want everyone to do exactly what they did before.
But I simply can't see what you hope to learn from all this. I think it's just nonsense.
Do you, Mr. Wren?
You can count me out. I'm too busy in the kitchen.
Unfortunately, Mrs. Ralston, I can't count anybody out. One might almost say you're all guilty by the looks of you. Why are you all so unwilling?
Of course. What you say goes, Sergeant. We'll all cooperate, Mollie.
Very well.
Wren.
Fine.
Miss Casewell.
Yes.
Mr. Paravicini.
Oh, yes. I consent.
Major Metcalf.
Yes.
So are we all to do exactly what we did before?
The same actions will be performed, yes.
Then I will return to the piano in the drawing room. Once again, I will pluck out the signature tune of the murderer. Dum, 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 dum.
Not quite so fast, Mr. Paravicini. Do you play the piano, Mrs. Ralston?
Yes, I do.
And you know the tune of Three Blind Mice?
Don't we all know it?
Then you can pick it out on the piano with one finger, just as Mr. Paravicini did. Good. Go in the drawing room and wait for me to give you the signal.
But, Sergeant, I understood we were to each repeat our former roles.
The same actions will be performed, yes, but not necessarily by the same people. Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
I don't see a point.
There is a point, Mr. Ralston. It's a means of checking up on the original statements, and maybe one statement in particular.
And what do you expect to learn from all that?
You'll forgive me if I don't make that quite clear at the present moment. Now, will you all please pay attention? I'll assign you to your new stations. Mr. Wren, will you please go into the kitchen and watch over Mrs. Ralston's dinner? You're very fond of cooking, I believe. Mr. Paravicini, will you please go up to Mr. Wren's room? By the back stairs is the most convenient way. Major Metcalf, will you please go up to Mr. Ralston's room and examine the telephone wire up there? Miss Casewell, will you please go to the cellars? Mr. Wren can show you the way. Unfortunately, I have to ask someone to reproduce my own actions, and sorry to ask it of you, Mr. Ralston, but would you please climb out of that window and trace the telephone wire to the door? Rather chilly job, but you're probably the toughest person here.
And what are you going to do, Sergeant?
I will be reenacting the part of Mrs. Boyle.
Taking a bit of a risk, aren't you?
You will all remain in your stations until I call you.
Parlor games.
No objections to me wearing my coat, I suppose.
Oh, no, I should advise it, sir. Take my torch. It's just right there. Mrs. Ralston, count to 20 and then begin to play. Mrs. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston!
Yes, what is it? You're looking rather pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
Yes, I've got exactly what I wanted.
You know who the killer is?
Yes, I know.
Well, which of them?
You ought to know, Mrs. Ralston.
Me?
Yes. You've been very foolish, you know. You've been holding out on me. As a result, you've been in danger multiple times.
I don't know what you mean.
Come now, Mrs. Ralston. We policemen aren't quite so dumb as you think. All along, I've realized that you have had first-hand knowledge of the Longbridge Farm case. You knew Mrs. Boyle was a magistrate on the bench. In fact, you knew the whole time. Why didn't you speak up and say so?
I wanted to forget.
Your maiden name is Waring.
Yes.
Miss Waring. You taught at that school where those children went.
Yes.
And it's true, isn't it, that the boy who died, Jimmy, managed to post a letter to you. A letter begging for help. Help from his kind, young, innocent teacher. You never answered that letter.
But I couldn't. I never got it.
You just didn't bother.
But that's not true. I came down with pneumonia that very day, and the letters got put aside with the others. It was weeks before I'd gotten to it, and by that time, that child was dead. Dead. Waiting. Hoping. Gradually losing hope. Oh, it's monstrous that such things should happen.
Yes. It's monstrous.
I thought the police didn't carry revolvers.
Please don't, Mrs. Ralston. I'm not a policeman. I rang up from the call box saying I was calling from police headquarters and Sergeant Trotter was on his way. I cut the telephone wires. You know who I am, Mrs. Ralston? I'm Georgie. I'm Jimmy's brother, Georgie. Oh, you better not scream, Mrs. Ralston, or I shall fire this revolver. I'd like to talk to you a little. I said I'd like to talk to you a little! Jimmy died. That horrible, nasty, cruel woman killed her. I said I'd kill her one day. I did too, in the fog. Oh, it was great fun. I'd kill them all one day when I grown up. Because grown-ups can do anything they like. I'm going to kill you in a minute.
You'd better not. You'd never get away safely, you know.
Somebody has stolen my skis! I don't know where they are, but I don't care. I'm tired. It's all been such fun, you know, watching you all and pretending to be a policeman.
That revolver will make an awful lot of noise, you know.
It will, rather. Better to take you the usual way. Around the neck! Last little mouse caught in the trap!
No! Georgie, stop it! Get off! Georgie, stop! Look at me! Georgie, you know me! Look at me! Remember the farm, Georgie? Remember the animals? The battle pig? The dead vultures across the field? And the dogs?
Dogs?
Yes, Spot and Plain.
Kathy?
Yes. Oh, you know me, don't you?
Oh, Kathy, it is you. What are you doing here?
I came to England to find you. I didn't recognize you until you twirled your hair like you always did. Yes, you always used to. Georgie, come with me. You're coming with me.
Oh, where are we going?
Don't worry, Georgie. I'm taking someone over there to look after you.
and see that you do no more harm. Georgie, stop. No more of that. Stop it. No.
Ralston! Ralston!
Mollie! Mollie, darling! Darling, are you okay?
Giles.
Whatever dreamt it was Trotter.
He's mad. Quite mad.
Why didn't you tell me?
I wanted to forget.
Everything's under control. He will be unconscious soon with a sedative. His sister's looking after him. Poor fellow's as mad as a hatter. Of course, I've had my suspicions of him all along.
You did? Didn't you believe he was a policeman?
Oh no, Mrs. Ralston, I didn't believe he was a policeman. You see, I'm a policeman.
You?
As soon as we got that notebook with Monkswell Manor written in it, we found it vital to have someone on the spot. When it was put to him, Major Metcalf agreed to let me take his place. I couldn't understand it when Trotter showed up.
And Casewell's his sister?
Yes, it seems she recognized him just before this last business, and luckily came to me about it just in time. Well, it started to fall. Help should be along pretty soon. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Ralston, I'll remove those skis. I hid them on top of the four-poster.
I thought it was Paravicini.
I gather they'll examine that car of his rather carefully. Wouldn't be surprised if there was 1,000 or so Swiss watches in the spare tire. That's his line of business. Nasty little bits of good. I believe he thought
Giles,
I was...
what were you doing in London yesterday?
I was getting you an anniversary present. We've been married just a year today.
Well, that's what I was doing. I didn't want you to know.
No!
They're cigars. I hope you like them.
Oh, darling. They're splendid.
You'll smoke them.
I'll smoke them.
Now, where's my present?
I forgot all about your present.
Oh.
It's a hat.
A hat?
Just for Bess.
I hardly wear them.
Just for Bess.
It's lovely.
Put it on.
No, when my hair's done properly.
Oh, it is all right, isn't it? The woman in the shop said it was the last thing in hats.
Mrs. Ralston! Mrs. Ralston! There's a terrible smell of burning coming from the kitchen!
Oh, my pie!